What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode. Coach Joe here with Heartletics.com. And man, I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm out of my comfort zone on this one just because of the fact that if you guys are watching this on maybe YouTube or, hey, even if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, there's a lot of people on this call. And the reason I'm nervous is because all these guys look so great, right? And I just love looking at all these people. And we're going to be talking about something very personal today, which is actually going to be, diabetes, which is very, very serious. We're going to be talking about blood pressure. We're going to be talking about cholesterol. But here's the thing. If you're somebody that is struggling with your health, whether it's in the form of medications like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, or just struggling to lose body fat, struggling to have motivation, the intentions is that you guys just filled with nothing but inspiration from listening to today's episode. It's going to be a good one. And to kick things off, right, let me just say this. We are not doctors at all, right? Coach Brian, Coach Mark, Coach Jimmy, we are not doctors at all. All the other, coaches that's in the group, we're not coaches, guys. This is just going off of experience. This is just going off of the fact that, hey, at the end of the day, we've coached a lot of people. We've helped a lot of people, get off their medications, reverse their type 2 diabetes, which we're going to be seeing and hearing from some amazing stories later on today's episode. We're just here to just inspire you guys to take the right action. Now, with that being said, Mark, let's talk a little bit more about the differences of diabetes. Would you mind talking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So without going too, scientific, basically what we're looking at here is diabetes is about insulin, right? And insulin is required for glucose, sugar, to get from the bloodstream into the cells of the body. So the first type of diabetes is type 1, which is hereditary. And under that situation, basically your body does not make insulin. It's some sort of autoimmune problem where you just don't have the insulin at all. In type 2 diabetes, which comes about more due to things like inactivity or, diet problems, under that circumstances, you're making the insulin, but it's not functioning properly. And when it's not functioning properly, you still have the same situation where you're not properly getting the glucose levels from the bloodstream to the cells, causing a backup and a higher level of sugar in your blood. And then there's a third style that's kind of new on the scene. They refer to it as type 3 diabetes. But really what that is about is new studies linking diabetes to Alzheimer's. So what really, there is just another risk factor for things that diabetes can lead to, and they're finding one of them now is Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and primarily, just so everybody knows, we're going to be talking about type 2 diabetes. Actually, Mike Berry, do you mind just unmuting yourself real quick? I just had a question for you. Back when, your doctor did tell you that, you had type 2 diabetes, your A1C levels was a 10.6, did they ever educate you about diabetes and how it works in the body or glycemic index or anything about that?
No. They used to tell me I need to be a vegetarian. I told them no.
All right. Well, guys, I'm going to bring Mike Berry back on here in a little bit, and he's going to share his story because in 7 weeks, this man reversed his type 2 diabetes and got off all of his medications, and it's really inspiring to hear. But first, let me just educate you guys a little bit about diabetes, some more, type 2 specifically, and it's mainly caused, like what Mark said about, hey, just being inactive, right, being obese, and just at the end of the day, your blood sugar is a little bit too high, and we see the signs all the time, especially, I hate to say the facts here, but I think the stats is like over 42% of the U.S. population is considered obese, which is scary because there's some underlying health factors that occur, with type 2 diabetes, like blindness, kidney, failures, heart failures, different things like that. So it's very serious. But I don't want anybody thinking that's maybe listening like, oh man, this is something like super, super serious and I can't do this to make the change at all. It's very simple, okay? And it all starts with just prioritizing your health first and foremost. I got my notes here, so I'm going to share with you guys a little bit more just so everybody knows about diabetes and what causes the spikes in blood sugar is obviously carbohydrates and sugar. And when I say sugar, right, like in form of glucose, don't get scared by that terminology, okay? So this is how it works in the body, all right? Long story short, you eat something, carbs, sugar, whatever the case may be, right? It gets broken down into your small intestines and then soaks up, all the glucose, aka the sugar, and then passes it into the bloodstream. Well, then from there, your pancreas, okay, detects the high amounts of sugar and produces insulin, okay? The insulin is what's going to help lower the blood sugar down to a healthy level. Now, people with type 2 diabetes, obviously they have a big problem with producing that amount of insulin. And think about insulin as just the key, right, to unlocking and getting that sugar out of the bloodstream into the cell for energy purposes. That's all carbs. Sugar really is energy, right? Fast digesting, slow digesting. We talk about that all the time, but it doesn't have to be as serious and scary, right? It's just moderate changes that anybody can do, literally anybody can do into their own health and their day-to-day habits to make a change. Whether you get signed up for our coaching program or you take your own action steps, literally anybody can reverse their type 2 diabetes. It's just, you got to be knowledgeable and actually just make sure that you're doing the right habits each and every day. So let's go into this. And I actually heard this quote, which is very powerful. And it says, hereditary loads the gun. Okay. Which means maybe your, family is struggling with diabetes, maybe family struggle with high blood pressure, whatever the case may be. But then it goes into your daily habits and your environment pulls the trigger. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, to where we can stop this in our tracks and our trends to just say, hey, no matter if it is hereditary or not, we can still step up and do the right habits that we can focus on right now to making sure that we stop that and it doesn't get passed on to us. Once again, starts with our daily habits. Let's go a little bit into carbohydrates and sugar specifically, because somebody just heard like, oh man, so if I eat carbs, right? If I eat sugar, and I'm a type 2 diabetic, obviously I can't produce the insulin, the sugar's just sitting around there in the bloodstream. And obviously that causes underlying health conditions. Here's the reality. Okay. Yes, there are good carbs. Yes, there are bad carbs, but food equals fuel. Jimmy, do you mind telling everybody, coming from a bus driver, right, that lost over 120 pounds, at the time when we first had our call, nutrition was not your forte, right? It was this calories in versus calories out, unhealthy relationship with food. And as you progress through your own transformation, you got to learn a little bit more about how it actually works and how you can eat the foods that you want and enjoy, right, burning body fat. Would you mind sharing with everybody just a little bit more about, let's say, good carbs or carbs to stay away from?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you have diabetes or you're pre-diabetic or, your blood sugar is raised. You want to try to stay away from starchy carbs like white rice, white bread, stuff with added sugar, soda candy, processed cereals, stuff like that. You want to try to stay away from because it really raises your blood sugar real quick. Good carbs to eat would be stuff that's, whole grains, whole grain bread, brown rice, couscous. If you like pasta, don't go for the white stuff. Go for the, whole grain stuff. Fresh fruit actually is good to eat. You may think that, oh, it's sweet, sugary, but it's nutritious. It has a lot of fiber. So, it's good to eat. Sweet potatoes, beans, things like that, are good carbs to eat when you're dealing with diabetes.
I love that. And so from a inside perspective, obviously being a nutritionist, I know that the foods that you said that were good, the carbohydrates, they were filled with fiber, and the foods that were the bad carbs was filled with a lot of sugar. Now, once again, guys, don't think the sugar is being the enemy. Now, as a type 2 diabetic, yes, but Mike, I'm going to unmute you one more time, brother. Did the doctor ever say anything about the terminology glycemic index with you when it comes to diabetes? Mike?
No, I did not. I just simply said be a vegetarian.
Gotcha. So, guys, when it comes to this is huge that I want everybody to understand, okay? So remember, if somebody eats something that's a carbohydrate, like, Jimmy said, the processed cereals, like the donuts, the snakes, all this stuff, right? It's going to spike your insulin, which is not good for a type 2 diabetic because obviously, right, they're not producing, right, enough from their pancreas to actually, unlock and put all that, the glucose into the cells for energy purposes. So it's just floating around there in your blood sugar. You don't want that. That's where you're going to have the underlying health conditions from and health problems from. But, right, everybody here can educate themselves. Everybody here that maybe like listening into the podcast or YouTube, right? You can always educate yourself. Go to Google and just type in glycemic index. You're going to see a handful of different images, right? Articles. And what it is you're going to find out firsthand for yourself what foods are going to spike your insulin, right? The stuff that Jimmy mentioned about like the white rice, right? I love white rice, but I'm not type 2 diabetic. I don't have to worry about that at all, you know? But now here's the thing. Somebody that's a type 2 diabetic, I'm going to give you a cheat code right here. You can still have white rice without spiking your insulin so much. So if you go to the glycemic index and find a nice image on Google, which I highly recommend everybody does, especially if you're somebody that struggles with type 2 diabetes, you can see the fun foods, right? Like the high processed foods, the cereals, as Jimmy mentioned, the fun foods, right? And what we focus on at Heartletics is the 80-20 rule, right? It's okay to have that in there, but how is it that somebody like Mike Berry, who can eat the foods that he wants, and in 7 weeks, right, reverses his type 2 diabetes? It's simple, education. So when you have these higher glycemic, carbohydrates, how do you get it lower to where you can at least fit it in moderation, obviously, and not spike your insulin so much? Well, you mix it with a healthy fat. That's it. A carbohydrate, typically, if it has fiber in it, like maybe complex carbs, it's slower in digestion. Processed, carbohydrates or, the high, sugary ones, guess what? It's going to spike your insulin because it's faster in digestion. You can always, though, have a little cheat code and just say, hey, if I'm going to have some white rice, right? Maybe some chicken, maybe throw like some healthy avocado in there, right? Avocado is a great healthy fat. When you mix in a fat, right, aka a lipid, that's going to be slowing down the digestion process, it's going to take those numbers down a lot more. And that's one of the cheat codes that I would say anybody that's listening to struggling with type 2 diabetes and you want to fit in those favorite foods, obviously, yes, in moderation, but understand this, like when you're pairing and mixing the foods and you have the proper knowledge, it's very easy to do that in a way where you're not going to get scared, you're not going to get timid or anything like that. But here's the big portion of all this, right? And this is where I want Mark to kind of share next, is even if you don't know that information about the glycemic index, your daily habits, that's what's going to lead you to getting off, the type 2 diabetes. That's what's going to lead you to getting off the blood pressure, the cholesterol medications, your daily habits. Mark, for anybody that's listening, or maybe the clients here, I mean, you guys all know, obviously, these 7 habits, but Mark, give everybody the rundown, man. What are these 7 habits that somebody could easily be doing to start bettering the health to obviously, get off these medications?
Yeah, and I'll just say too that, aside from all these physical effects of diabetes, there's a lot of mental effects too. And these habits that we're going to talk about also would, many of them would aid with that as well. But so there's 7 essential habits that we're looking at. We've got 1, maintaining a calorie deficit, right? 2, we've got, focusing on your macros, a high protein diet. 3, resistance training. 4, we're looking at hydration. 5, we're looking at NEAT, non-exercise active thermogenesis, basically, movement, that's not exercise based. And then sleep or recovery, and, stress, managing your stress. So those are the 7 habits that if you're dealing with those on a daily basis, they're going to help you with A, your mental outlook, but B, the physical effects of something like diabetes.
Absolutely. And as you guys know, all listening into this right now, these 7 habits, they're very easy, right? We're not trying to sugarcoat anything. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's just very simple things to do that Mark talked about. You have the proper knowledge on knowing how to eat specifically for your body type and goals. When it comes down to macronutrients, like just recommend this: have at least 1 gram per pound of protein for your body weight. If you're 200 pounds, have at least 200 grams of protein. The resistance training, find something where you're training your body where it's hitting each muscle group, but it works for your lifestyle. It works for your schedule. It's something that you enjoy doing. 4, when Mark talked about the needs, it's just getting your body moving, going for some steps. 5, the hydration. 6, the stress. And 7, the sleep. These are all easy things that anybody can do. Anybody can do. And I promise you this, if you start implementing some of these easy things to do, some of these habits that we go over at Heartletics, your life can truly change and transform. Brian, while you're here, brother, you had a complete transformation. Obviously, going from a client to now a coach, man. And I still remember, right? You downloading the Facebook ad, you thought I was a robot texting me, right? Scared, everything. For anybody that's, listening in, what would you say about like your story? Because you know a lot about, obviously, the blood pressure as well. So tell everybody kind of like the Coach Brian story.
Yeah, well, I'll be brief because I know we're pressed for time, but everybody knows my story, my transformation. And I was worried, I was skeptical, kind of typical, is this guy a robot? Can I trust this? And I've tried so many different nutrition, meal plans, diet programs, and just yo-yoed back and forth. And, I just decided to go ahead and dive in. And like you said, I had blood pressure issues. I was on a high dose of medication for 15, almost 20 years. And just this past, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I'm a year off of my blood pressure medication. My blood pressure is 125 over 81, I think. Just absolute zero medication, perfect blood pressure. And I know it has a lot to do with nutrition and my activity and all that. But man, my mindset and just the new habits that I've developed absolutely, hands down, changed my life. I am Brian 2.0 now. It's just, I'm a different guy now. So just, I can't say enough. And look, I want to encourage anybody that may be out there, the time is now to get something done. Don't wait for you to have the money to invest. Don't wait for your schedule to get better. My schedule was crazy. I worked a 12-hour swing shift back and forth. Y'all have seen that and heard that part of my testimonial. Don't wait for where you can get your family involved. And this is the time is now to invest in yourself. Find your why, make it important. You'll find the time. You'll be able to carve out the time to change your life as well. Yeah. That's my call to action for the guys and gals that are interested. The time is now.
I really like how you said also about find your why, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Remember, like your why, Brian, trying the South Beach diet, the paleos, the ketos, the nooms, the P90X, everything like that. You tried it all, you failed it all, right? And it's just like this yo-yo effect to where when we had our call, you were very scared and skeptical, right? But you said, though, your why was, I'm more afraid of staying the same. Who I am today, high blood pressure, overweight, lacking confidence, lacking energy. I'm more afraid of staying this person, and it's only going to get harder. And that risk obviously changed their life for the better. Somebody else that took a huge risk and got amazing ROI, Mike Berry. Would you mind, let me unmute you, brother. Would you mind kind of sharing your story? I kind of made sure that we had plenty of time because I want to hear from you guys as well, because I think anybody that's listening in, they could hear me and Mark and Jimmy, talk about the science of diabetes and blood pressure. But I think the reality is this, it's safe to say, guys, as long as we know how to properly eat, we know how to properly train, and we're just making sure we're focusing on these daily habits, the world is ours, and focusing obviously mentally as well, become the best version of yourself. You will be unstoppable. You will get off your medications. You will improve your life. And Mike Berry, you're a prime example of that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your story?
So for me, I was diagnosed pre-diabetic probably a year and a half before I found you. And what I did was, I think everything on the internet's a scam. So I started watching your stories of people's success. Then I would go stalk those people. I've never told you that, to see if they were real people.
Did you find Brian? Did you find Brian?
Yes. So anything that's out there public, I'm making sure they're real people, not just.
Pause. Hold on. Brian, Mike, you have no idea, man. Like why you just said that, it makes me laugh so much because almost every day I get called a scam. I get called that I'm a robot when I text these guys when they download my Facebook ad. And it's just so funny. And knowing that you literally went to see these transformations and to verify that they were real, that means the world to me. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm a skeptic of everything. I question everybody and everything. It doesn't matter. So my wife would be the first to tell you that. So pre-diabetic, and then I dealt with that for a year, and then I called you. We had a conversation. I wasn't ready to drop the money. I couldn't at the time. So I said, I told you, I'll be back. My wife told you, I'll be back. Took me a year. I paid off a bunch of stuff, got some disposable money. Called you back, said I'm ready. By that time, the price had gone up. I almost fell off the bed when you told me. And but I was like, it doesn't matter. My wife said, we're doing this today. We're doing it today. So so my blood sugar went from 6.4 to 8.6, and in 3 months from 8.3 to 10.6 in 3 months. And they said I was going to have a heart attack because I refused medicine. I think all medicine's poison. At that point, I'd had to concede and start taking the medicine. And that's when we called you. 7 weeks later, when I go back to the doctor, they're like, I walked in, they're like, oh, wow, you're a different person. You're not near what you used to be. What have you done? And I said, oh, by the way, I quit taking my medicine 3 weeks ago. They're like, you can't do that. I'm like, well, I did. So they did my blood sugar. When I come back from my blood work, they're like, you don't have diabetes anymore. You don't have high blood pressure. You don't have high cholesterol. Did you become a vegetarian? She went and got the main doctor. The main doctor's like, what, did you become a vegetarian? I was like, no. He's, vegetarians live 15 years longer than meat eaters on average. I said, can you imagine 15 years with no bacon?
Pause. Mike, what state do you live in?
Sir?
What state do you live in?
Texas.
Isn't there like a law you can't live in Texas if you're a vegetarian? I'm pretty sure I saw that.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, if it didn't,
Everywhere except Austin.
yeah. Now, if you go to Austin, you can eat.
Hold on. Mike, back on track. Okay. Mike.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, I eat eggs and bacon almost every day. And he goes, what? Well, what have you done different? And I said, I hired a nutritionist and coaching program. There's multiple people at my disposal. They all feed into my life. I manage my macros and I'm being active. I said, I'm not a gym rat, but I'm being active. I work out about 3 or 4 hours a week tops and I walk. And he's like, but that doesn't work. And I said, I took my shirt off and I flexed for him. And I said,
Yeah.
does it?
Yeah.
Like, no. He goes, get that guy's information, whatever he did, let's put it in the system.
Yes.
I want to check him again in 9 days and see if he's still there. We're going to start pushing this group. And I said, okay.
Love it.
So my doctor now has y'all in the system.
I love it.
So he said he's been doing this over 35 years and he's only had 3 or 4 people beat diabetes. And it took him 1.5 years, 2 years minimum to beat it. And I did it in 7 weeks. So he's in shock.
Yeah, let's do this real quick, Mike. I want to say 3 things because I want to talk to you a little bit more about this since we got time. 1, do you remember? I remember this, right? Do you remember what you told me, right? When I said, hey, are you sure you actually want to get signed up and do it this time? You talked a little bit about the cost, about how it's costing you a little bit more now. Do you remember that?
I do. I told you I can't afford not to do it.
Exactly. I can't afford not to do it. A lot of people don't see the cost of inaction. Like Brian, for example, the cost of inaction was, hey, more time with high blood pressure, more time here on earth, lacking energy, lacking confidence, and just not feeling myself. I mean, guys, I hate to be realistic here, but we're not even promised tomorrow. Like, we're all going to die one day. That's just the reality of it. So might as well just take life, by the horns and
you froze up.
take grasp over it, and
Right.
take control over it. And that's exactly what Mike Berry did. Mike, the second thing was that when you messaged me, man, you scared the crap out of me because you sent me a message on the app and you said, call me. And I knew you were going to your doctors and you didn't say anything. You said, call me. And I was traveling to Nashville. I was at the Chicago airport, right? The connecting flights. And I told my buddy, right? And that was actually, for my 30th birthday, right? My 30th birthday, the best gift that I ever got was me calling Mike because he told me to call him back. And he told me, hey, Joe, we did it. And I said, what do you mean we did it? And he said, I'm not just off my blood pressure meds. I'm not just off my cholesterol meds, but my A1C levels went from a 10.8 down to a
10.6 to a 6.0.
Yeah, not diabetic anymore. Best, hands down, one of the best gifts I ever got in my life was hearing that. And Mike, real quick before I go to some of the other guys, how you do it, right? Because somebody's going to be listening and thinking to themselves like, okay, maybe this guy's really not a robot because I actually see him moving and talking, but he's still a scam artist, right? All these guys are fake. They've paid all these guys, right, to say all this crap. Mike, what do you got to tell for anybody that's listening in, right? That's kind of sitting on the fence and they're like, okay, Mike Berry just got off his blood pressure, his cholesterol meds, and reverses type 2 diabetes in just 7 weeks of coaching with this scam artist. How'd you do it?
Dial into the protein, dial into the macros, all the macros. I set a precedent real early for me. I will not miss my calories and I will not miss my protein. My coaches can all attest to I am dialed in on the protein and the calories. I had some mix up. Brian helped me straighten out a couple of things on the macros with the carbs and the fats, but we got that straightened out. Yeah. And and I stay active. That's my keys. Activity, macros. And if you trust it, it'll work.
You also mentioned, right, your activity, right? It's just steps and you're in the gym. You said maybe 4 hours max a week, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it just goes to show that anybody here that is struggling to find time, just like what Mike said, you don't need to be a gym rat. You don't need to go above and beyond. You don't need to, kill yourself. And that's why a lot of people fail, because they see this shiny light syndrome, right? The new shiny toy, the cutting out the carbs, the fasting, the AKAs, right? Instead of actually just doing what works and what's sustainable and something that you enjoy, we're just creating habits. It's good work, Mike. Let's go on to Zach. Zach, where you at, brother? Are you still on here?
I'm here. Yes.
There you go, brother. I want to ask you, man, because we kind of talked about this before we hit recording. Your story is very inspirational as well. What would you say to anybody that is hearing this and they're just looking for some inspiration to make a change in their life and to improve on their health? What would you tell, somebody in that situation to kind of help them?
Well, I would start with, there's a reason you're on this call. Don't dismiss that. There's a reason you found your way to this call. And people say, well, I want to get in shape, and doctors will say, well, you need to get in shape, and it's all very well intentioned and true. But I would challenge anyone to get specific with that a little bit and think about some things. Like, no one with diabetes that's, at the end stage where it's gotten really bad and maybe they've had an amputation or whatever, don't use that regret sometimes as motivation, or look at something. You don't want to have that happen, because if you ask any of those folks, if they had the ability 10 years ago, 20 years ago to make some changes in their life that would have caused this not to happen, every one of them tenfold would say, oh my gosh, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have started eating better and working out and being active. So sometimes it's something specific, like think about specific things, like I want to be able to play with my kids now or my grandkids someday, or I don't want to need help getting out of my chair, my rocking chair someday, things like that. Be specific. And it all starts between the ears. And that's the most important piece. If you can begin to change that mindset in your head, everything else will follow, because this is in charge of the rest of your body.
Yep,
and if they're not tuned in, so I'll just leave you with one quick quote that I came across the other day that has to do with gratitude. And I know Coach Brian has talked a lot with me about gratitude, and it can be life-changing to come from a place of gratitude, and it can be motivating, and it can lead you to do things and have a different outlook. So the quote is, if you appreciate and are grateful for what you have, you will always have more.
Yeah.
And if you aren't appreciative and grateful for the things you have, you will never, ever, ever have enough. So be grateful, appreciative that you're on the call and that you have the body and you still have the chance to make these changes and change the course of your life and your health. That's what I would say.
I love that, brother. And I really appreciate you saying that too. I think even you kind of mentioned about like, hey, if you did suffer with maybe a heart attack or amputation, whatever the case may be, well, hey, you still woke up today. You still got some breath in your lungs, right? Make today that change. Make today, no matter how bad of a past you might have had, you can still use that as fuel to the fire to motivate you for a better success in tomorrow. And also, it's a great inspiration story, right? They always say the harder the mountain, right? The better of a view at the top. Jeff Johns, brother, would you mind? Let me unmute you, brother. What would you say, man? We kind of talked a little bit also. What would you say to anybody that's just like, man, they need to hear something to just really motivate them,
Well, for me, anybody can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And the things that really resonate with me from your program are the 80-20 rule and be 1% better every day. Those are the major things that I try to embody into my life every day. And, you know, it's okay to not be perfect if you're a little bit better every day.
Dude, that's what consistency is all about. You know, that's why everybody has these wristbands, right? Consistency is key. And it's just like the facts of life of just, you need that reminder. You know, I love how you said that, Jeff. It's just like, you're not trying to be 50%, you know, and run a marathon the next day. And, you know, hey, I've never worked out in the past 2, 3, 4 years. So I'm just going to, you know, sign up for a gym membership and start going every single day. If you don't know how to, you know, walk before you run, you're going to burn yourself out. And we see that all the time. And the great reminder that you just said, Jeff, was just, hey guys, just have some grace with yourself and just remember 1% better each and every day. You know, Rome was not built in a day for sure. Chad, I see that you're with Hannah also. Would you mind, let me unmute yourself. There you go. Are you guys unmuted?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. What about you guys? A couple joining this program, doing this together, which is amazing, right? Creating these better lifestyle habits, not only for you guys self, but also the kids as well. What would you say to, you know, somebody that's just listening, just kind of inspire them as well?
Well, I only have 3 really quick things. 1 is don't let fear stop you. 2, the time to start to change is right now. And the other thing I got from Coach Jimmy is show up.
Yes.
And I would say that your health is worth it. And your health is worth making it a priority. And it's not selfish to do that. It's actually almost unselfish to all the people around you to make yourself a priority and get healthy to be better for yourself and for them.
I agree 100%, Hannah, 100%. And Chad, I love those 3 tips also. You know, there's so much truth to that. And it's not selfish at all, you know, to prioritize yourself and focus on yourself. I kind of did an episode about that, talking about vacuums versus batteries. And sometimes we need to be selfish to recharge our batteries to give back into others. Gabe, my man, you've had such a mindset shift during this whole entire transformation, now progressing into the mindset coaching phases. Dude, literally, I love, right? All your posts inside the community group, right? The one you said about the stamina, right, in the bedroom, fire, right? The one where you posted literally your clothes, right, that you had to throw out and give away because you don't fit them anymore, man.
Yeah.
You mentioned also, I mean, it was not too long ago where your daughter was also on the Zoom call, right? And she talked about how she can hug you and everything like that. Like you've said, such a great transformation so far, and the best is yet to come. What would you tell anybody that's listening right now is like, okay, maybe I was in their shoes. I know what it's like being scared and on the fence, but I need something or hearing something that's just going to make that switch happen.
Absolutely. I was listening to the Zoom, so I took my sticky pad and wrote some notes here, kind of a little bit of my journey. And I started off with high blood pressure. I had low energy. My sex drive fell off the cliff, right? I was overweight and unhappy. And I wanted to change because I wanted to be an example for my family. And I wanted to be active with my family. And I didn't want to be on meds because the doctor said, if your blood pressure doesn't come down, we're gonna have to put you on meds. And I wanted to be proud of who I was. Now we're over 4 months. I just signed up for my phase 4, 5, and 6, and I'm super excited. We are, we're making such great progress. My energy, I didn't get my energy back. I got an upgrade, guys. I'm the hottest 40-year-old in my block. I'm gonna have to say that. So that's because it's part of what being a man is. You want to be proud of who you are. You want to have energy. You want to be able to satisfy your wife. That's part of being a man. And my confidence came back because the coaches helped me with my mindset and me being able to better myself and my kids saying those things. It lifts you up. My message to whoever is listening is, you just said it before, if you're listening to this, man, there's a reason why. You've gotten this far. Make the same choice I made, not just for yourself, but for your family. And do what I did, brother. Get in it. And I think you need to add one more rule to the fat loss, because we have the 7 rules of the fat loss. I think the magical one was accountability. being part of this program, the accountability really pushes you over the edge where you think you can't make it. The coaches, the community, they just get you that extra mile that you need. So that was for me. That was my.
I love what you said about accountability. And for everybody that's on the Zoom chat right now, right, and myself included, just show of hands. Has anybody had days where they feel discouraged and not feel like showing up? I know I do that, right?
Every other day.
Right? But yet we all come together, right? We all come together, we push ourselves. And that's the value, right? When it comes to community, is having that support. I mean, we see it all the time, right? Somebody's having a down day, they're feeling kind of discouraged. They'll make a post inside the community group. They'll get 50 messages flooding them with just love and support, and it inspires everybody. It's just like that snowball effect. That's cool. You know, I love seeing that. It's really inspiring. And before we close things up here, obviously, Jimmy, Mark, I gotta, ask you guys as well. What would you say to anybody that's just on the fence, thinking about, signing up for our coaching program, or maybe they need some inspiration, anything to just kind of help them with where they are currently right now with their life and helping them progress to become the best version of themselves tomorrow?
I mean, I'll start and I'll say, tying it back to the theme of today, as far as, like the diabetes and all that, right? So, your diabetes has a cyclical attachment to it aside from the physical, which is that, dealing with the stress of managing it, of treating it, it makes the actual illness worse, and then it's going around and around. So one of the greatest factors of Heartletics, and the reason that I kind of, gravitated to it in the first place, is that it's complete. Yes, it's fitness. Yes, it's nutrition, but it's got the mindset in conjunction with all of that. We help you deal with stress. We help you be a community. We help you, basically be part of something bigger than yourself. And I think that says a lot.
I love that. Be part of something bigger than yourself, because so many people want these goals, but they don't have a plan or action plan or a game plan. And then when you realize here that maybe you're just setting those goals a little bit too low, and you got all these other people that's supporting you, you raise the bar, you raise your standards, and it all starts mentally. I would say hands down, 90% of the results that anybody's going to get, it starts here before the physical. Plain and simple. Jimmy, what about you, brother, man? What would you tell somebody? You had such an amazing story, such an amazing transformation. You literally inspire the world, brother. Why don't you close things out for us today before I do the official outro?
Sure. I'll just say this. If you're watching this, okay, look in the mirror, and that person and looking back at you is the reason you are where you are. Nobody else, you. And then look at this, all these people here. Yeah. They're here because of a decision they made. So you are responsible for where you are. Everyone here is responsible for their happiness now because they made a decision. So make the right decision. Only you can do it. Nobody else can do it for you. Just make the move.
It's like the quote that I heard was, hereditary loads the gun. Your daily habits and environment pulls the trigger, right? And what you just said, I think it's a reminder to myself also, right? Is just take ownership. Realize here that if you want something, no one's going to come around with a fat loss pill that's going to clear you of all your medications. In fact, I personally don't know anybody that has took blood pressure medications and then they have to stop taking their blood pressure medications because of those medications in the first place. Like, no, it's just a Band-Aid to the gunshot wound, right? You got to put in the habits. You got to put in the daily action steps. And, as Coach Mark talked about, it doesn't have to be hard at all. Plain and simple, and you guys heard from other people talking about today. It just is all about showing up, prioritizing yourself, taking ownership, taking action. And it's okay to be a little bit selfish. And just hear me out. If you're somebody that's struggling with diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol, all you need to do is start focusing mentally first, right? On prioritizing your health. That's first and foremost. Take ownership, just like what Jimmy says. Follow through with some easy habits, just like Coach Mark says. And just like what Coach Brian said, have trust and have faith that it's going to work out. That no matter how bad you are right now in your life in terms of your health conditions, or you don't see that light at the end of the tunnel, you woke up today, have gratitude because of it. Plain and simple. Guys, I appreciate everybody tuning into today's episode. And hey, if you're somebody that's listening to it for the first time and you want to hear more about Heartletics, just go to heartletics.com, We have tons of videos, tons of free fat loss guides that you can even download and start implementing and trying those out into your own lifestyle today. But just stay tuned. And I would say if you got any inspiration or value at all from today's episode, just share with a loved one. Maybe just they need to hear, hey, it's not over, right? It's not over. You can still push, continue to just move, just like what Jeff said, 1% better each and every day. And I promise you, if you just start prioritizing yourself first and foremost, you're going to make that change and it's going to happen in your life, hands down. Guys, this has been the Heartletics Podcast with Coach Joe, Coach Mark, Coach Brian, Coach Jimmy, and a bunch of other people that's joined in for today. And I appreciate everybody. Once again, hope you guys got some value. As always, peace out, Girl Scout.